the Evolution Security Podcast. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the EvoSec podcast. I am, as always, Aaron Davis, and I have my twin bro, Eric Davis. We are the Tactical Twins, and we are excited that you have joined us on this show, and we are extremely excited to have on the show for a third time, Mr. Kyle Defoor. Yes, this is 3. How you doing, Kyle? Man, it's awesome having you on again.
I'm doing good. I can't believe I've been here 3 times. I don't want to wear you guys out. Hopefully, people are still digging it.
Oh, your show, Kyle, has awesome. Every one of the 2 that we've had, they're some of the best downloads we have, man. So,
oh yeah,
yep.
Well, cool, good deal.
Yeah, we're gonna use you for downloads, buddy. Give us some Christmas presents here from downloads.
Well, thank you guys for having me, man. It's a pleasure. You know, always. I last couple times we had good times. You know, talked about some music, talked about some shooting. So it's always good.
Probably a little more of that again this evening. So on that note, Aaron and I decided, hey, we were going to make sure we brought a drink along. So cheers to you, brother, having this.
Well, Big Poss would be unhappy if I didn't have one of them in me right now. So, yeah, I mean, I asked on a podcast one time, the guy's like, hey, no drinking, no cussing, no dipping. And I was like,
okay, no podcast then.
I was like, man, so I just threw a dip in. So hopefully you guys can understand me.
So what's funny, though, I do have to poke out there a little bit. So this is a Man-of-Law for Southern Pines Brewery. It's an IPA. And I just wanted to say a shout out to Scott Jedlinski because he doesn't like hippie beers.
I don't either. It should be, if it's not on a NASCAR, it should not be drank. So
that's right. I remember you saying that the last time.
That's my opinion. But dude, I've been to Southern Pines Brewery before. Me and Pat Mack, when I go down there, sometimes we'll hang out. And for whatever reason, the last time I was there, I thought when he was like, hey, meet me at my pub, I thought his pub was Southern Pines Brewery. So I was like, yeah, I'll meet you at Southern Pines Brewery. So we go in there and, and then like we're 2 or 3 beers into it. And he's like, my pub's down the street. This is not it. I was like, sorry, dude, I didn't know. His pub is like Murphy's or whatever. But
yeah, I'm surprised I haven't run into him yet because my jiu-jitsu gym's there in Southern Pines and my wife and I eat in Southern Pines quite often. So I may just have to. We've conversed with Pat a little bit. Maybe we need to talk to him about coming on the show again. But man, he's so close. I need to try to, again get into some of his classes at a minimum.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. Well, I guess we can get rolling. I mean, speaking of training, I mentioned this to you in text, and I'll first start off and say that standards and or drills that are an assessment is nothing new, right? I mean, yeah. So, but one of the things, and I'll just say this, that's actually one of the first things that I discovered about you and or found you putting out online was your tests. Like, so one of my favorite tests a long time ago was your pistol test 1. I thought, man, that.
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
15 rounds.
Yeah, I mean it's a great test, and that was kind of one of the things that I started following you about, but one of the things that we're noticing, and Aaron and I, we train with a lot of people. We've been around long enough in this that we're seeing change. And it just seems to me overall that the industry, and when I say industry, let's just put it this way, the shooters and the folks that are coming to classes and doing their thing and on the path seem to be getting a lot better. Would you agree with that?
100%. It's, I'm not the only guy. I mean, there's like a lot of us, you're seeing changes because the quote unquote average shooter is way better than he was even 2 or 3 years ago. So that's a good thing in the development of the industry, especially training. And you have a lot of guys out there. A ton of dudes and that are they might have just started teaching or shooting as a pro for like the last year, but they're pushing students, and then this whole thing is getting bigger and better. And I recognized it, I don't know, it's been probably 18 months, 2 years ago at this point, but it became painfully obvious when I was giving away, old Hat Qual was for like pistol, concealed draw at 25 on a BA bull, 10 rounds for a dot sub 15 seconds for a irons sub 20. When I started that years ago, I might give away 1 or 2 hats a class, maybe. And then I would say the COVID year, that probably had something to do with it too, because a lot of guys dry firing because there's nothing else to do. Dude, I couldn't make enough hats. Like literally, we just couldn't. We couldn't even, because it's a real high quality hat. I think I got one somewhere around here, but it's like probably the best flex fit hat you can buy as far as quality goes. But we just couldn't make enough. I was giving away 10, 12. And then when I started doing classes, and I do accuracy first, and obviously there's a lot of guys start out close, start out far. There's always going to be that argument, but I do accuracy first, and so it's 8:45, and I usually do a dozen to maybe it could be 16 students depending on some stuff, but call it 13, 14 average. Everybody's shooting 95 and above. You're like, what the hell? Yeah, it's a good thing. It's I tell people all the time, I'm not gonna, me personally, I'm not gonna run out of stuff to do. So I opened up the can a little bit, so now we do some other stuff to get a hat. You know what I mean? And at this pace, my guess would be I'm probably gonna have to change it again within another year.
Oh wow.
That's what I'm seeing right now. Just because you've got so many guys that are pushing good instruction and good skill development, and all of us in the industry see that, and so I think it's good. I'm not going to run out of stuff to do, so you don't have to worry about that.
well, cool, and that's one of the things that I did want to highlight, because I saw you put online your new hat quals, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I think I have it. So your pistol hat qual, it's on an IPSC target with the B8 bull placed on a target where it reduces the A zone to about 4 inches squared, right? Something around there.
6 inches square. All you got to do is take a B8 repair center, and if you put the bottom of it on the DC line of a USPSA target, you'll get half A zone.
Yeah, that was when I first saw you do that on your first pistol test. I dug that as a method of using the targets for certain. So you have 25 rounds, 10 rounds in 15 seconds for a dot, and 20 seconds for irons like your older qual. And that has to be 90 or above in the B8 bull. And then you have 7 yards reduced A zone, 0.75 low ready to one shot from concealment, 1.5 seconds, and a 3-second 6-round build drill. Do I have all that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and that's all and a lot of times we run into places where maybe they don't, just a 6-inch target at roughly, man height or whatever. That's it. That's and those times, those times are, they're not, there's definitely, you can do it faster. I mean, the reason I want to do a reduced A zone was it just, full A zone. I mean, you can game a little bit, and reduced A zone makes it a little bit more, I guess, accountable. It maybe might be the word. So that's why the times, you don't have the true bill drill time of 2 seconds, because we're cutting it in half. Plus, it's a concealed draw. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, I mean, I put the information's out there on the website. It's all, there's YouTube videos of me doing it.
And I'll drop it in the show notes too, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's but when guys have to do now the 25-yard thing, we're only looking at guys doing it once. If they can do it one time, I typically give them 5 opportunities now. I used to do 3. I'm starting to do 5. And the reason for that is that you still get a lot of people. Yes, the shooting is getting better, as a community, but a lot of people, if they have not had a competitive background, or they have not done a lot of competition, they don't understand use of time as far as distance, target size, and splits, a consistent fast draw stroke, etc. And so that's why I give them 5 opportunities. So they got to do it once. Now, the low ready, the bill drill, and the draw, they do it 5 times, but they have to do 5 iterations without missing.
Nice.
And that is what gets a lot of people not getting a hat. Now, I'm not saying you have to do 5 sub 1.5 draws into a 6-inch square at 7 yards. I'm saying you got to do 5 without missing. One of them has to be under 1.5. So I did that for a year or so. And I think it's kind of cool, but like obviously people started gaming it a little bit. So you'd have a guy who's burning it down out of the gate. He's 1.35. He gets a hit, and then his next draw stroke's like beep. Bam. And I'm like, okay. So then I started putting, and all this, like, just so the listener knows, like, none of these times, even the old stuff, I didn't just come out and go, yep, this is what it's going to be. It is based on well over 1,000, no kidding, 1,000 people, both military, LE, and Civ, where I said, this is the high standard. You know what I mean? So I have put a gradient in there for the low ready. Like, for example, low ready, 0.75. That's a legit low ready if it's true. If it's low ready, like, and again, you see guys where they're low ready, they're like,
yeah.
I'm like, that's not low ready, dude. Like, like obviously gun, basically the muzzle, if they turn the light on, if they have a light, the light should hit the bottom of the target stand, the feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I've done for that is I turned that piece on day 2 into a training thing for the students, where I make them train each other. So you got 4 to 5 guys looking at one guy shooting. You got one guy timing, one guy shooting, one guy writing down score. And you got a couple of guys looking, going, hey, dude, that's not low ready. Hey, especially with carbine. Carbine's even worse, right? High ready with carbine, guys are like, the muzzle's like straight. I'm like, that's not high ready. You got to break it down. I'll tell you, I should be able to walk in front of you, at high ready with a carbine. So it helps them kind of train each other. And so, I started adding that because that was something in the military classes we were doing to put stress on guys, to where you're like, you can't miss, but is the bottom line. You got to be able to still perform at some kind of standard, some kind of speed, some kind of accuracy, but you can't miss. You got to have the discipline to not miss. So I think that's one thing a lot of people on the internet, they might not be catching, but you got to do basically 5 without missing. And you can't sandbag. If you sandbag, you're going to get called out.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head, Kyle. These are attainable, but they're a high standard. And I think the biggest factor, I think it was what you're kind of alluding to, is that, hey, these are standards that high performers should be able to make. But, at the same time, it's not something that there are some standards that, man, people can attain them, but it's real difficult to maintain them. To me, and so I'm going to tell on myself, I only shot it once it's probably been a month ago. It was when I saw it. I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of my drills for the day. I only shot it once though, just seeing where I was. I did not pass the 25. I think it was I think I shot an 82 or an 85, something like that. But the rest of it, I did pass. But that's something I am, have been working on for about the last year, and I can shoot 90s on the 25, in under 20 seconds. It's when I was starting to push the under 15. That was where I was having a little more tough time, but I'm working on it. But I guess what I'm getting at is, man, that to me, my goal with standards like yours is to develop them to where I can shoot them cold a good percentage of the time. And I think that's the way I look at this standard for sure. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, 2022 was the first time I've ever failed my own standards. And I can make up some great excuses for it, but I was shooting irons at the time. It was funny because a student asked me, he's like, I was demoing the 25-yard thing, like 89, 88, 90 at 20 and 0.05 or whatever, and I was like, yep, I didn't make it, and that's kind of, I show people. I mean, I think even on my website, mm-hmm. there's a few tests of me failing.
With that's respect, we all respect mm-hmm. that greatly.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not a quote unquote content developer. Me being able to even film anything when I'm teaching, to me is a big deal. That might be something to talk about too. You got dudes who are training, you got guys who are developing content.
Yep.
I don't have time to pay somebody
absolutely
to film me doing only what I do well. So I mean, when you see the Instagram stuff, I mean, it's me taking a picture or a quick video and saying, hey, that's what I just did, and here's all the witnesses. So I mean, yeah, I mean, dude, it's not easy, and it's not, I mean, like for example, the one I failed, I passed all the stuff at 7. The one I failed at 25. I mean, now granted, it's raining, and
that makes a difference, man, big time.
I mean, it's, but that's good. I mean, that's the thing is like, standards 75 degrees and partly sunny. I mean, okay, that's cool. I mean, had I had a dot, that probably would have been a pretty easy pass. It's just it's a good rep, I think. I mean, there's a lot of standards out there. I've seen a lot of guys. I try to follow a lot of guys on the ground nowadays. Support the rest of the community and whatnot. But I see dudes. I've made friends recently with guys I don't know. I've never met them, but I've met them on Instagram. You know what I mean? And they got good standards. I think the stuff I try to come up with is, it's a high level. If you can do it cold pretty consistently, you're probably shooting okay. Both accuracy, both distance, both speed up close, et cetera. There's definitely some standards I think that, might not be a standard. It might just be like guys have to really practice it if you have to practice it to pass it, I don't know. It gets a little murky there. But.
Well, Kyle, Justin Dial said something that I keyed in on similar to what you're talking about. And he called those standards aspirational standards. And
mine?
No, he was saying like standards that, man, you can't get all the time, and you got to really, really train hard to get them. Say for instance, one of the ones that sticks out to me is the Todd Green fast drill. That's one that the fast coin, and that's one of those that, man, you really gotta either be a IPSC GM or you gotta train on that drill.
It's really, that drill in itself is very reload specific.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? That's where most people fail. I mean, again, like I think all these tests are great. No matter, anytime you can test, anytime you can shoot in front of other people, and that's another reason that I do the curriculum the way I do now. And I make these guys, and I kind of joke online sometimes about like day 2 of a 2-day class, the last hour of day 2, I'm typically walking around with a dip in. I'm not doing anything. I'm watching guys and making sure people aren't sandbagging and cheating. But because it gives them an opportunity to train each other. But the big thing is, again, when you've got this great shooting community now, it's better than we've ever had it in the, almost 18 years I've been doing it. But you still have a lot of guys, they maybe have not done competition where they feel the stress of competition. And I understand that because it's that's your Saturday, that's your weekend where, if you're a dude with small kids or whatever, I get it, but I'm giving them that opportunity in class. And that's why we do it 5 times, to get that kind of that stress on there. It's pretty interesting because, you'll see guys that are, and I've had some very high level shooters in the competition world. The 25 thing kind of gets them.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I can see that.
You get some CMP guys, the 25 thing's not a big deal, but they can't skin that smoke wagon fast. They can't find the dot, it's always a thing, right? With dots nowadays or whatever. But it just gives them this opportunity to kind of compete. And a lot of them, I have to kind of debrief it at the end where it's like, hey man, you're competing right now. You're not in a stage in IDPA or USPSA, but you are competing because you're in front of each other and you got this blue box of death in front of you, the timer. And so it's good, man. That's really good stuff. I mean, it's it adds value.
It's kind of what Scott Jedlinski said on our show when we were doing an AAR about his Red Dot instructor class I took recently. And he was saying something similar to that, you may not necessarily be competing, at IDPA or USPSA, but you are competing against each other. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And then, having that opportunity to compete against your buddies on these types of standards he alluded to as well. But yeah, man, that's all. Go ahead, Aaron.
Eric, I just want, before we go too far, and this isn't a germane question any longer, something that I don't hear talked about, and it's prime to be able to talk to you about it, Kyle, because you're teaching open enrollment, you're teaching LE, you're teaching high level military. I'm curious, where do you see civilians, or just where are the majority of the really good shooters amongst, let's just say, those 3 swaths of applicants?
When you say where are they, you mean like where are they?
Like for instance, okay, so I've heard some shows where guys that were SF and they go to an IDPA match and a lawyer's out shooting them.
Sure.
How does the civilian open enrollment compare to let's say some of your higher level military or SWAT team guys?
In the past 3 years, and I tell guys this every class, most of my civilian classes, my students could outshoot pretty much any guy in the mill pistol wise.
Interesting.
That would not be an exaggeration.
And when you say any guy in mill, do you even mean spec ops or?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's where we are now training wise in this industry. And I think I said it on your guys' show last time. I'll say it again. We are in the golden age of training right now. It is. I am telling people, like I make a point telling this. It is not going to get better, with the exception. I'll say this. Between now and the next 5 to 7 years, it will not get better than it will start to decline after that because we're never going to have tactics wise. We're never going to have that kind of war again. That's not happening politically or socially. It's just not going to be accepted to fight a 20-year war in our lifetime again. We're never going to see that. Shooting wise, I mean, this kind of opens up a little bit of a can, but like there's a lot of guys in the industry right now that are ahead of gear, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there's a lot of pro shooters and trainers, instructors, whatever word you want to label these guys as. They're waiting on the gear companies. Whereas if you look at when I came into the military in the early mid 90s, it wasn't like it was like that a little bit, but then it changed. Like, for example, we're shooting iron sights, right? And then we get red dots. The gear companies were ahead of us, on a rifle. And of course, what do we, a lot of people don't even, there's very few people in this industry that can remember that. I can, where we're like, fuck a red dot. I shoot cowboy sights, you know what I mean? And you're like, of course it took, guys like Jerry Barnhart and, Benny Cooley and these really good carbine shooters that are shooting red dot where they're like, yeah, hey, idiot, you need to use this. And then you get it on that train and you see how good you are. We saw that in the last few years with a red dot on a pistol. But I think now we're seeing an odd shift of there's so many good shooters, there's so many good guys training that we're seeing some gear companies are doing a really good job of being progressive. But we're also seeing some stuff where we're kind of waiting on it now, which again, I don't think in my lifetime from the early mid 90s to now, I've never seen the shooting public waiting. I've never seen that. I have seen gear companies develop something and give it to us. And we're like, okay, well, that's cool. But now we're waiting. I mean, and there's examples. I mean, I could, we can go, I mean, I can give you examples. I mean, but it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time.
That does bring up some interesting thoughts hearing you say that, Kyle, for certain.
Well, I mean, I'll give you one. Like, I don't want to leave the listener hanging. Let me give you one. 4 years ago, so I went to Shooter Symposium twice. It's very difficult for me to go, especially now because they kind of run it in October now. Used to be kind of a spring thing. But regardless, it's very difficult for me to go because typically October we're past, fiscal year money for the Gov, for the mill, for LE. And it's like, I kind of like, it's a week. I'm usually jammed, But I did go, I think 2 years in a row, or I did a year, skipped a year, and then a year, something like that. The second time I went, you've got the who's who in the shooting world. Yeah, I mean, you name them. Everybody, you can Google Shooter Symposium, you can see who all goes. It's everybody. Me and a couple other dudes were like, hey, man, we got all these manufacturers out here. Here's what we need to, here's something. How about universal footprint for red dots on a pistol? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that was 3-4 years ago and still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at carbine, we got universal rail system by late 95, early 96, universal, So that's what I mean by sometimes the gear companies are a little bit behind. But I'll give you an example of gear companies being progressive. And I have I am not paid by OpsCore. I don't, I have a couple of OpsCore helmets just because I think they're the best. But look at what OpsCore is doing now with a ballistic helmet and the integration of smart software into the helmet. Whether it be battery life for the nods, whether it be how the nods are mounted, whether it be the ballistic protection, which is actually bulletproof now. It'll actually stop a round, whereas before, it's like, yeah, it's a ballistic helmet, but like as long as you don't shoot it with a 9mm, you're fine. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's treated as frag protection and not.
That's there's two examples. One where the shooters are ahead. One where very progressive and that's cool. But you're seeing a lot of that. and here's the deal on that. When we look at kind of combining these two things together, bridging this gap between all these good shooters now, I mean, you got civilians now that are just really good shooters, man. Because you have so many guys that are pros or trainers that are really good at shooting and teaching, which is, two different things. But if we look at kind of bridging that gap, I think the biggest problem is there's these old paradigms. And I think that's the right word. Meaning that very similar to where when I started shooting bullseyes fast and everybody's like, well, you can't do that with a bone stock Glock. Okay, well, I mean, everybody does it now. I mean, you can't, again, it's like, I mean, who doesn't do it? I mean, it's easier to say who doesn't do stuff like that. Those people are kind of like the unfortunate thing from what I see is a lot of those guys, those old dogs, if you want to call them that, they're the guys who are upper management or middle management in a lot of these gear companies.
Yeah.
And they're not tracking like what people are able to pull off. They're not tracking what people want. And some of these, that's why you're seeing some of the shooters getting ahead of the gear companies and waiting on stuff. I mean, like, another example would be, do we really need to remove batteries or remove optics to put batteries in? I mean, in 2022, do we really need to do that? I mean, come on, man. Like, but now you're going to have a group of dudes who are going to say, well, that's what I'm doing because it's, made in America or whatever. And I'm like, okay, dude, I'm the made in America. Bro, I'm wearing Prometheus pants right now. They're made in USA. You know what I mean? But you're seeing that, which is an oddity. Now there's tons of people. They haven't been in the industry long enough to really click this. They're not tracking this, but there's a few of us who've been in it long enough where we were in the military. Then we came into this and we're like, hey, this is interesting. We're kind of waiting on the gear manufacturers.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That brings some gears turning for certain. Kyle,
it's deep. It's dude, it's a double podcast right there.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Let's take a quick break to mention Tenacor, who we're very honored to have as a sponsor of our show. They are the most innovative holster and carry solution producer in the market. Now, my current carry rig is a Glock 48 and a Khartoum 3. I also carry an extra mag and an Abdo AIWB mag pouch. And then, of course, there's the awesome Zero belt. Now, the Khartoum 3 is actually designed well for both appendix or hip inside the waistband carry. The key is the multiple ways you can adjust the camming bar, the cant, and the ride height. This allows it to be actually equally suited for both carry methods. The Abdo mag pouch is equally adjustable and thoughtfully designed. Now, the Zero belt. If you don't need a holster, at least grab a Zero belt. There is nothing like it, period. Now, I've just mentioned a few items here, but they have much, much more. And lastly, Tenacor wants you to be satisfied. If you aren't satisfied, they'll refund your money and pay to even have the product sent back to them. You can't lose, so go to Tenacor.com for carry gear that's as good as it gets.
Well, Aaron, what you got, buddy? You want to go ahead and move into our next topic?
Sure. Now, Eric alluded to it earlier. He mentioned taking Scott Jedlinski's Red Dot instructor class, and Scott, of course, spoke very highly of you, and Eric took note of that. And we're just curious. You brought up that you've had some friends from afar, which is kind of fun. You're going through kind of the same kind of stuff that we go through, friends from afar on Instagram, etc. So who are some of the guys you've got some good relationships with? Maybe you're picking each other's brains offline, etc. What kind of guys are you into, or gals in the industry too?
Well, I mean, gosh, that might be your podcast right there.
Okay.
So I do. So I'll tell you, man, that's, I knew you guys were going to ask this, but I didn't know you were going to ask it that way. So I'll tell you that if you look back at what I'm saying about, in some cases we're waiting on the gear companies. Now this would be flip side of that coin. There's a lot of instructors and pro shooters out there who are so far ahead of others and probably in some cases the gear companies with what they're putting out. I mean, I can name guys like here's one of the things is like I do a lot of gov stuff. I do a lot of mill stuff. Going to do a mill job and knowing that, in the statement of work, you have to do this, you have to perform this way, they're expecting this. I tell people all the time, there's not a big list of people that I have in my phone that I can say, hey man, I need you to come do this job with. That's just a fact. And it's not now part of that is because I don't know everybody. I'm not on Instagram all the time. I told somebody this the other day, I post my thing and I kind of move on down the road. But guys that I think that add big value, that would be the word I would use. They add big value because they've either developed or they're very well ahead of the norm, especially that paradigm thing we were talking about of the old school of just I'll give you another example is I posted something. When is this going to air? I don't even know. But today is Today's December 21st.
What do you think, Aaron?
Oh, I think we're going to let it go until after Christmas. Hey, Merry Christmas, everybody. Yeah. Because everybody's going to be so busy.
Yeah. That's the point behind it. We want people listening to it as they will, but if we air it after Christmas, it'll be
this is too good to air during Christmas week when everybody's busy running around, etc.
Right, nobody's going to listen to it. So I'm going to throw you. So December 20th, yesterday, I posted a picture of me in the prone with a bipod. One picture is me dropping with a scoped rifle bipod. One is me, just a normal, I think it was a 14.5, just resting the mag on the ground, doing 10 rounds under 14 seconds from 100 yards into a B8 repair center. You got to score 90 or better. Now, every one of your listeners, I would assume, you're not getting natural point of aim in that kind of time. Like that's not happening.
No way.
It's out the window. And that was kind of the point of the post. So what's important is your connection to the gun. What's important is your experience level on tracking sights. What's important is your ability to work a trigger, reset on recoil, etc. Blah blah blah. I got a text message from a renowned former military sniper who was like, "That's wrong, because you're not doing natural point of aim." I'm like, "Hey, bro, I'm telling you right now, if you're athletic and strong, the quickest you can pull off the first shot is about 4 seconds, which basically puts you on 1 second splits for the remainder if you're going to make time. Not hard. I mean, 1 second splits in the prone on a B8, not hard from 100, but now I'll tell you this, most people can't get down there and take the first shot between 3.5 and 4 seconds. Most people end up taking the first shot at about 5.5 seconds, which now you're on a 0.75 to 0.5 split on the other 9 rounds. But that's what I'm talking about with this paradigm thing of guys, it's just it's not there. In their mind, they're like, well, no one can do that. And I'm like, well, there's thousands of people that do this. It's not just me. It's not just my class. I mean, I can name guys. So that's the kind of thing you need to kind of get in your mind about these guys I'm going to talk about. So in no particular order, because I didn't write anything down. I meant to, but me and my wife ate pizza before I came out here, so I got kind of delayed. I will tell you Bill Blowers, Tap Rack Tactical. 2 things Bill is ahead of anyone else. Well, one thing he's ahead of anybody else that I know of is shield work in relation to LE. I don't even know anything about shields. So I'm kind of I'm giving you something from hearing it from other people. I've never even seen a shield in real life. I don't even know what it looks like.
Interesting. That's cool.
But that dude's like, he's like doing stuff that like most people can't even, they're like, what? You put a light on it? Why do you do that? You know what I mean? Like shit like that. Bill is also doing stuff with nods that that not a lot of people are doing. Now I'll tell you, transparency, full transparency, right? That's the phrase. I've hired Bill to come with me and teach gov classes before. The first time I hired Bill, we'd never talked together. It was a gov contract. Interestingly enough, there were so many things we do exactly the same. I was like, wow. A lot of people were like, why did you, if you've never met that guy, why'd you hire him? I'm like, well, because I can tell by watching him online that he can shoot and he knows what the fuck he's doing. You know what I mean? And by the way, I ask people, hey, I need help with this. I need help with this. I need help with this. And, now sometimes people are busy or whatever. Anyway, that's one guy. Another guy, Bill, I call him my two Bills, Bill Rapier, AMTAC shooter. Bill Rapier's combination of integrated combatives, which would be fighting and gun work. But Bill has done it to a point where he's doing something else with it too, where you might be skiing, you might be, walking, doing some land nav, you might be, so basically these environmental type trainings that, like, again, nobody's ever done that before him.
Cool.
Light years ahead of a lot of people. Now you're getting into the physical. You're getting into how physically fit are people, right? Which could be the next big step we see in all these good shooters that we're seeing now. Is like some guys are like, well, that's cool, but I can't run 2 miles or whatever, something like that. Matt Pranka, X-Ray Alpha. Matt is a guy. Me and Matt text each other a lot. We call each other a lot over things in the industry. He's a guy that brings value to being very, very analytical and very like, okay, here's the time, here's the target. You tell me how you would do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no bullshit. It's not, it's not a production company. It's a training company. Do you know what I mean? Tom Kyer from the SIOT guys for fighting. I mean, the SIOT colleague guys are on a level in combatives that is like, now granted, almost 99% of their stuff is all military. But the interesting thing about guys like him, guys like Master Chim, Harley Elmore from Headhunter Blades, these guys are doing they invented a lot of this shit. That, yes, has made its way into the civilian market. I do some of it, of course, in my classes, but those guys are like, they're still forefront guys bringing value to this stuff.
Hey, Kyle, can I stop you there for a split second? I don't know if we spoke about this. You mentioned Harley Elmore. Back when I was still in Tulsa, when Aaron and I were younger, before I joined the Army, I trained at a gym called Gibson's Martial Arts, and it was a mixed martial arts gym before mixed martial arts was what it is today, including all the Kali stuff and the Jeet Kune Do concepts and whatnot. And Harley, I remember he actually was a part of the Inosanto / Gibson's family. And so I know Harley very, very well. He's a good dude. And I don't know, it's been many years since I've spoke with him. But yeah, Harley's a great dude and a great instructor for certain. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up.
One of the better instructors. I'll tell you two things about Harley Elmore real quick. I teach arm drags now in the classes because Harley taught me how to teach it in a way that I can get it across in a couple of hours.
Cool.
Because arm drags are hard to learn. They are.
Right. But the way he does them, they're not, it's the flow of the way he does it. Another thing is his counter edge weapon work. If a guy produces a blade on an LE guy or something like that, or military guys, obviously, he's the guy. I mean, he's the dude. Again, a lot of people will probably see this in another instructor or another aspect. and they probably don't even know where it comes from. I've told people this before. Speaking of Dan Inosanto, Dan Inosanto was Bruce Lee's number one student.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's not like conjecture. I mean, people know this.
It's absolutely true.
It's 100% true fact. Dan Inosanto had Bruce Lee's handwritten training journals. Well, you know who has them now?
Is it Harley? Really? I didn't know that.
That's
I'm gonna have to shoot him.
Ponder that for a minute. Dan's probably. I'm assuming he's got to be 80 something.
He's very close, if not. Yep.
But I mean, he's like got the wherewithal. He's like, this is the guy I'm giving it to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's cool.
And I don't know if a lot of people that's a big deal. But moving on down the list, JD Patinsky, Northern Red. JD is a wizard as far as, without him, we don't have a way to do this for Gov or Ellie. He's the guy. I helped out a little bit, but he's the wizard, and tactics that are as sound. Like, here's something I tell with guys with Northern Red. If a guy goes to a Northern Red class, I don't say, hey man, was it any good? How was it? No, any of these guys, I wouldn't even ask that. I would be like, I already know it's good. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of some other dudes here. Todd Hotnet. You guys know who that is?
I've not heard his name. I've heard all the other gentlemen's name, but Todd.
So Todd Hotnet, the grandfather of the Horus Reticle. How about that?
Okay.
Very influential on applied ballistics as we know them now, being input, through some type of PDA. Probably has forgotten more about sniper stuff than most of us will ever know. Like, this dude's not even breaking out a gun if it's closer than 600 yards. It's not even happening. Right? We're talking about 1,000 plus. Like, he's the guy. These are guys that are that they bring so much value. We could just keep going on for forever. God, who's some other dudes that just like really stick out in my mind right now? You guys mentioned Jedi. You look at Scott has done he's made it so that people who are like, again, that paradigm thing where they're like, well, I'm going to shoot iron sights because they'll never fail. That kind of bullshit. He's kind of made it comfortable for people to be like, well, fuck. He teaches a class about red dots. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of introed that into a lot of people's, a lot of people's universe. Chuck Pressburg.
Oh yeah.
Chuck is, again, I'm not gonna and I have a couple of students. Me and Chuck share a few students that are come. I don't have to ask a guy, hey man, was Chuck's class? Oh, did you learn something? I don't have to ask them. You know what I mean? I already know the answer. So there's a lot of guys out there. I leave. If you click on my website and you click Tribe, there's a drop down menu of all those guys.
That's right.
The combatives thing is a totally kind of a different thing. I don't know your listeners, because you guys are fighters. Most of us grew up doing jiu-jitsu when it wasn't you know what I mean? It wasn't a thing. You look at the Atienza Kali guys, Carl and Bong Atienza.
Yep.
There's no better long blade guys on the planet. And people don't even argue that. They're just like, well, yeah, they're the guys. If you're going to North Africa and machetes are going to be a thing, I would highly suggest you go train with dudes.
Nice.
They're going to show you any kind of counter to that there is,
Wow.
Yeah, man, there's tons of guys, man. Tons of guys.
Well, very cool. Kyle, I think sometimes, I've went on your tribes, the tribe section, and sometimes in discussion, having a little more, some of the other gentlemen that I'm well aware of, it just causes me to go, hey, I'm gonna research this guy a lot more now. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask that question, or I wanted us to ask that question. So that's cool. Yeah, it's one of those things that, because just full disclosure, Aaron and I spend a lot of our time, on in the ShivWorks collective kind of group, and Tom Givens, and that's where we've done a lot of our work in recent time, and that's where of course we feel comfortable. But there's the aspect of wanting to reach out and do more with other folks, and sometimes, man, it's good to talk outside of our comfort zone.
Hey, I'll give you another one, man. This is one that sticks in my mind because you guys know Sage Dynamics, Aaron Cowan.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like, here's something for the listener. Like, I don't know. You got a new magazine. Aaron made a video on it before it came out.
Yeah.
I'm recognizing that magazine. We can talk about that later, I think.
You get a new holster, and you're like, well, I wonder, I think I like this holster. Dude, Sage Dynamics made a video about it before it came out, and it will answer every question. Like that's a guy. And now I would tell people, like, if you're a dude who's getting into the industry and you're like, I'm going to do gear review videos, I'd be like, I don't know, man. You're going to have to bring some A game because that dude's already done it. It doesn't matter if it's an optic, if it's a gun, if it's a suppressor. It doesn't matter. And he does a good job of it.
Oh, yeah.
And, I've only met Aaron, I think, once or twice, drank some beers with him or whatever. But like, I tell people, it's like on the last podcast I was on about medical, I'm like, you'd have to be an idiot to go into Dark Angel's website and not pick out a good med kit, because he doesn't make one that's not good.
Yeah.
Right? You would have to be a really bad consumer to not be able to make a choice after watching a video that Aaron does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, dude, he goes through the whole thing, bro. Like, that's his game.
Well, and there's something we're going to talk about here in a little bit, that a great video of his that it's like no question about that particular product, but we'll wait till we get to that. I'm just giving a little bit of a
and so what I'll do, since we've spent quite a bit of time on these other topics, rightly so, because man, great content.
Oh, wait, I got one more.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I don't even know this guy. Some of these people I've never even literally. I wouldn't even know them if they were in front of me right now. Ridgeline Defense. You guys know that dude?
That seems familiar to me.
Sniper guy. Okay, so I don't know. It's been a couple years. My scoped rifle class, I'm not one shot, one kill, yeah, whatever. I mean, dude, you got a mag-fed weapon. Shoot that son of a bitch 8 times. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. So it's not a thing in our classes to, like, 600-yard line, 5.56. I mean, okay, hey, dude, put 3 rounds on the target. Put 4 rounds. So I'm in there with a student. Student pops up and goes, hey, man, this is just like Ridgeline. I'm like, what the fuck's Ridgeline? I don't know. And he tells me. So I'll go on, I'm like, my Instagram. I'm like, yeah. And again, I can look at the video and, obviously it's going to take me a few. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. You know what I mean? And I've had some interactions. Alex Hartman is his name. I've had, we have each other's phone number and we text, a couple things, but like that dude right there, I'm not gonna, like, if a student shows up to my scoped rifle and he's like, well, I've been to Ridgeline. I'm like, okay, well then, you know what I mean? I'm expecting pretty big things at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I know that guy's not going to teach fucked up shit. So there's a lot of guys in there. I mean, I should have made a list. Here, I'll tell you one more before we get off the subject, because I do this a lot now. I do it in pistol classes. And this is getting back to what we were talking about earlier with, there are guys who train, there are guys who know shit, are in this life. Then there are marketing companies. Because obviously people have figured out, hey, if I can make a cool video of me doing some kind of shooting type tactic bullshit, I can sell a lot of t-shirts or hats or fucking medallions or whatever the fuck it is they're selling, right? They create content, Okay, so one thing I ask dudes in pistol classes now, And again, I usually have between 12 to 14. Sometimes I'll have 16 students because a lot of the gov guys, the mill guys who buy classes and they get deployed or whatever and they miss it. And they, so we might end up with 16. Who cares? 16. Well, who cares what the number is? I will go through each student. I'll go, Aaron, Eric, I want you to name me a good pistol shooter. And you come up with your who's who, right? So you get, Bill Blowers, Bill Rapier, Scott Jedlinski, Tim Herron, Matt Pranka, Ben Steger, Ernest Langdon, it just a list of blah, 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 blah. It just goes on. And I'm like, okay. And the point that I do is I'm like, I want all you guys right now to go on their Instagram. I was like, okay. I'm like, find a picture. And there's a couple of things. And I'll say, what's the commonality on this thing? And they're like, well, they all do it the same. I'm like, yeah, no shit. What does that tell you? And they're like, huh. And I'm like, okay, do it like that. That's how I teach sometimes.
Nice.
I'm like, think about it. Like I just gave you 15 dudes. They all do this one thing the same exact way. Now, there could be a slight variation, but generally the same way. And by the way, the guy that's demoing in front of you right now is doing it the same way. And by the way, that was really fast and really accurate. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, man, that's a clue, right?
Yep. We call that a clue. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, hey, that's happening. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up.
Oh, that's good. Fun. That's good, man. Yeah, we always love talking with you, Kyle. We certainly appreciate the support. We'll have you back as often as you'll come back on. And as long as I'm sure we have so many subjects to talk about anyway. Well, Aaron, I think you had some gear to bring up, didn't you?
Yeah. So so I lately have been drooling over some staccatos, and let's take this back a little bit. When you're a Glock shooter like we are, right? You think guns in terms of Glock currency, right? It's like, damn, dude, a staccato is going to cost me 5 Glocks. But when it comes down to it, the staccato is not that expensive. When you start looking at other 1911s, you just look at, a basic Wilson or Nighthawk, etc. But still yet, I've been one of our good friends and someone we took a course from not too long ago, a guy named Cliff Byerly. He had he had a Staccato P, and I was just real pissed at him for handing it to me because it's like, man, this thing is gorgeous and feels so great. So now I'm building a dream Glock 19 as we speak right now. I'm waiting on the frame to get back from the surgical guy from doing a real cool job on it, but that doesn't stop me from wanting the staccato. Now, I've been eyeing the C2, but I saw on your Instagram today that you were running the new CS. Now, I've got a couple of questions about staccatos, but let's at least go into that. You shot me back. I said I've been gassing over a C2, and you said, hey, man, the CS is better. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's what I tell people about the staccato. If there's anybody listening that rides motorcycles, one of the things in the Harley world we tell people is don't ever test drive a road glide. Because
what happens. Where you going?
After you test drive one, you know what happens, right?
You buy one.
Everybody buys one because it's like, holy shit, the staccato is no different. Now C2, I rolled with a C2 for a few years. So I would tell you this. I'm hoping this guy doesn't mind I mention him. I'll just say his first name. One of the higher ups there at Staccato, former Marine, name is Buck. He's the guy that brought me on to Staccato. And this guy, first off, he can shoot. Second off, he understands performance, and he's not afraid to make things happen. So the C2 is a great pistol. I love it. I still have mine. It's my backup now. Big differences between a C2 and a CS. And I don't know the exact measurements, but roughly a half-inch shorter barrel, right?
Yep.
So a C2, I think, comes in at 3.9 and some change. A CS is like 3.5-ish. But the CS is, from my experience, so an easier thing for most people to kind of comprehend as far as size goes. It's the exact same dimensions as a SIG 365 XL.
Oh, wow.
It's just that the grip here, this part, is just a little bit wider. Just a little bit wider this way. So to me, and I'll tell everybody this to me, this is the best pistol I have ever had. Now, one, it's very small. So your Glock 19-ish, probably a little bit smaller in some aspects than the Glock 19. You still got 15-round capability, but obviously way more accurate. And, the accuracy, you're getting a factory-made custom.
Yeah.
So the barrel's hand fit to the slide's hand fit to the frame. And it just the innovations on the CS. I mean, if you look at the barrel, I mean, if I kind of lock it to the rear here, just for the guys who have video, you can see the fluting here, right? And then you see on here on the chamber area, again, all of this ridging and fluting is to help with heat dissipation because the barrel is so short. That was a genius thing. Of course, they listened to us when we said, hey, we want the grip cut down a little bit because obviously this is concealment, not this way. And for the listener, not the viewer, I'm talking about the grip of the gun.
Mm-hmm.
The length of the grip is what concealment has to do with, not the length of the slide. But of course, if we lessen the slide length, we're getting a lighter weapon. So they listened to everything that everybody put out. And there's a couple of us that that shoot directly for them. There's a shit ton of guys that are ambassadors, and they listen to everybody. One of the interesting things on here is, if you take the slide off, there are little half moon cutouts on the slide, where the slide goes. I'm sorry, on the frame where the slide goes onto the frame. Little half moon cutouts to make it so that when you oil this thing, the oil stays where it needs to be for a longer period of time. Hence why you see guys like Mike Pannone, me, we're lubing these things in June. We're shooting them through December without ever lubing them again.
Nice.
So Staccato would be one of those companies I would tell you is very progressive. You're not really waiting on Staccato to do stuff. You're kind of like, holy shit, they've already done it. These guns, man, I've shot everything from 100 grain frange to 147 grain gold dot and everything in between in a mixed match. I've purposely loaded magazines with, 115 whatever, 124 this, and back and forth. And the group, the impact doesn't change that much. And it's because of how inherently accurate this thing is.
Nice.
Just an absolute, a dream of a pistol. Interestingly enough, with the guys who are doing this training nowadays, and with some of these companies that are kind of progressive in their delivery of product, we're changing the way this thing kind of happens. It's what I told people about 2 years ago. I'm like, you need to get on this red dot train, because if you don't, you're going to be so far left behind in class. When we go to the 100-yard line, you're going to be like, what? Like, my front sight's wider than the target. You know what I mean? Well, it's still possible to make that shot, but it's like the red dot guy's going to do it easier, and just 50-yard line. Like, to me, the 50-yard line, that's normal. I've been doing it forever. This thing makes it way easier, though. I can't say enough good things about it. The recoil spring is, everything about this is just, it is. And of course you still got the Staccato plate system, right? So you've still got the plate system, which the iron sight is attached to.
Mhm.
So now you just put your red dot on top of that plate. And if you look at this one, these are compact sights because I'm using EPS. So these sights are point of aim, point of impact at 25. I don't have to worry about any crazy suppressor stuff. Like if something failed, I'm still good to go.
And I believe that Dawson is their partner on that, right?
Dave Dawson works at Staccato.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
here's the thing about this might be news to you. There are people who don't know who Dave Dawson is, which I find I'm like, what? Like Dawson sights on a Glock. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely the best sights and the most variety. Just custom order some sights,
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I love it. And by the way, I just now realized another guy I forgot to mention, Mike Pannone.
Oh yeah.
UTT Solutions. Mike is, again, progressive, brings a lot of value to the community.
Been following him for years as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I like it when Mike gets fired up about something. Awesome.
Man, we need to reach out to him. He's a person we need to try to have on the show. Cool.
Well, so real quick, and then I want to talk about that optic too. So how long have you had that CS? I'm just curious. You've been running that for a while.
Okay, so the first one I got, God, man. Oh, maybe spring. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to ask.
Just curious, more than anything.
Now, the first one I got, they wanted back because I ended up putting not quite 10,000 rounds through that one. And, again, Staccato's very good about, hey, let us get it back. They want to look at what wears, what doesn't wear.
That's a good deal.
Blah, blah, blah.
Awesome.
The first one I got, we did some different things on the magazines. This one I've had since maybe, I don't know, August, September.
Yeah.
This one has right at 8,500 through it right now. So not a terrible lot, but haven't cleaned it yet.
So that you're bringing up to, so I want to say one thing and then I want to talk about that. So yeah, I think that I saw a video about the CS 2 weeks ago. I'm like, wait a minute. This is throwing a wrench in what I'm eyeballing here. So just tell me straight up. So I'd be kind of stupid to get the C2 and I can get the CS. I know that's harsh, but that's just the way I'm putting it.
In my opinion, the Staccato CS is just the best overall pistol I've ever been around or seen.
That's cool.
Now, take that with the aspect of I carry a gun, probably more than most.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every day, unless I'm going into a area where, if I'm going into a federal courtroom or something, I'm not carrying a pistol. But, I've been on motorcycle rides where I'm riding and I'm like, to make sure it's still there. Like you don't even know it's there. Now a lot of that's, holster. I mean, obviously, Jeff makes a damn good holster for this thing, but
and your zero belt. Yep. And look, Aaron, we didn't bring that up,
dude. We did not plan that. We did,
and
not
that was not
plan
planned at all.
That's a twin thing going on.
Tactical twins with their Tenacore shirts.
Look at what Tenacore's doing, not only with the belt but the holsters. I mean,
the holster.
They're adding a half-inch square material total for the light-bearing version of whatever gun you have. Like who's doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Jeff's brilliant for sure.
and a good friend, man.
He's a wizard.
We got so much to talk about, man. This is a blast. Well, then let's go. So real quick. So that's another thing that people say on the interwebs, that you can't treat even a Staccato like you can a Glock. It sounds like you're saying that's not true, that you can just run the shit out of it. I mean, compared to a Glock, what would you say, buddy? When it comes to cleaning, etc.
I have seen Okay, well, here, let me say this, because the way it is now is again, there's going to be a marketing company that has 500,000 followers, and they actually don't teach classes, and then I say something, and they're going to be like, you know, they'll crucify me, right, on the interwebs. So my first C2 at 25,600 rounds with no cleaning,
Wow.
only lube, I gave it to one of my friends in California.
Wow.
So that was a year ago.
I know that's a sample size of one, but at the same time, I don't think they went through the rack, ran the rack like you do a guitar rack and found the best one for you. You just ran a pistol. And that, again, that's where these staccatos don't seem as expensive as what someone would, again, that's used to running Glocks. That's really cool to hear from the horse's mouth. I figured that you abused it a bit.
Dude, I abuse all my stuff. And I mean, most people know I only clean my guns right now. So today's my last day of work for the year. So it's December, again, 21. I'll clean all my guns between now and probably January 2nd or 3rd. And then we start again.
That's awesome.
That's how I do it. And I've been doing it like that since 2005.
And
Wow.
I will say this, and I know it's probably trite to a lot of our listeners, is frankly people get too bent out of they get bent around the axle about cleaning their guns. I mean, with modern ammunition and modern guns, I like to. I used to say in the Army, man, you could clean the functionality out of an M4. Man,
Well, if we look at that just in itself, if we look at cleaning, I tell people this all the time, because there are places where I need to give a cleaning class, and this is no hit on anyone, but I mean anyone that's honest and doesn't have that set old man bullshit in there about like shooting slow and bullshit. Like, the military actually doesn't do a really good job of cleaning guns because they use it as busy work,
exactly,
or punishment most of the time. And so, that doesn't mean you cleaned the gun good. That means you probably took some coating off, or broke some spring or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And Kyle, if I can, that is a very important point, because I want to make sure, being an Army veteran myself, you're a Navy Navy SEAL veteran, is that I'm not trying to beat up on the service. You're right. That is what it is for. It's about, discipline and, and busy work. So yeah, I need to make sure that I'm clear on that, but you're right. Go ahead, buddy.
And where I'll interject here is where lots of goofy people still say that the AR is not a reliable weapon. That drives me up the wall. So those two BCMs right there on the wall, I have not had a single malfunction. The only malfunction I've had in an AR, which again was a BCM, was because I was rolling in the dirt and got a pebble within the chamber. I'm telling you, that one with the optic on it, I've shot that more than any rifle I've ever shot, and I cannot remember a single malfunction. So so the deal about ARs being unreliable, and I heard it from a quote SF, ex-Green Beret guy who wanted a AK because they're more reliable. It's like, dude, you have not shot a gun that wasn't torn apart by people over cleaning it, and like you guys said, for discipline in the military. So,
hey, listen, here's another one for you on shifts in training, and this is something that again, me and Matt at X-Ray talk about a lot. We discovered very early on in the GWAT cleaning sniper rifles and how to do it so that we could have cold bore repeatability all the time. And there are still guys right now who will crucify me on the internet because they're like, well, you didn't put sweets on it. You didn't run a patch through it 9 times, and blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but man, like, like your cold bore accuracy, like it's going to take,
So it's going to match your dope because of the way you clean it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an interesting thing. I mean, I think here's what I'm hopeful for, and here's what I see is that one of the good things, and I think we should talk about this. It's just popped in my head, so there's no rhyme or reason to why it's coming now. But the good shooting public that we're seeing right now, the student who's above average compared to 2 years ago. We're also seeing that in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And well, here's what I hope, man. And maybe your podcast is the place to say it. I hope that these LE guys that are low to mid-level management right now, God, I hope they stay in. And I hope they become chiefs of police.
Nice. That's very, very good point.
Training officers, because I can name you guys from the San Francisco Bay Area to LA, all the way across to Jacksonville, Florida, back up to New York, and hang a left and go all the way back to Seattle. I can name dudes who can burn it down that are cops.
Nice.
Cool.
And that's the thing is I hope those guys with the culture that they developed in themselves, I hope dude, stick it out, bro. That's my advice. Stick it out so that one day you're in charge and you can tell dudes, if you can't shoot this, you can't be here. That's what I hope. That's one thing that we should gather from this golden age of training that we're in. I hope that happens. I really do.
Well, and Kyle, something that I also surmise from what you were saying and kind of came, and this may take a minute, and maybe I'm just completely wrong, but with some of the bullshit that you put up with from people that, either it's either ego based or it's just simply sacred cows. Maybe one side benefit of this building community is we'll start to breed out some of all that bullshit. But I mean, it may be at least a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I mean, like me and Todd Hotnet talked about the other day about rifle testing. Todd and I have both taken well over 1,000 different scoped rifle shooters, and I've canted their gun. I've canted their optic. I've done 15 degrees right, 15 degrees left. So I mean, even if you're not a scope guy, you can understand that. Like I've canted it 15 degrees and had them shoot an entire course of fire. Same point of aim, no drop in accuracy is exactly the same. So an interesting thing on that, again, where competition comes back into the fold. A lot of us who, now back in the day, you had to shoot different competitions. When I went through sniper school, it was NRA or CMP type stuff with iron sights, but there was always different types of open match competitions you were encouraged to shoot. A lot of people don't even realize that we would do that on purpose. We would turn the gun, and this is not, I shouldn't say this, we as in like me as in like where I was in the military. I'm talking about like everybody that does this. This is a known thing. We would turn the gun so the buttstock was running down our shoulder like this instead of vertical. We would turn the gun, so you got a better connection to the gun. Well, when you do that, your horizontal stadia is going to have to be turned. Our goal was to keep horizontal stadia parallel to the earth. That was it. That was the goal. Because we know we're shooting at the 1,000-yard line, fixed firing position. I'm not running around with it. I'm not doing CQB with it. I'm not, you know what I mean? There are a lot of people who don't even know that was a thing. I'll give you another one. Are you guys familiar with Camp Perry, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. President's 100, whatever. Do you guys know muzzle devices, how a lot of them are attached? Some guys don't even. Some guys hand tight them. You got to have a quote unquote stock service rifle, right?
I mean, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like they're not even. They don't even torque them down to spec. They just put them on there so they can pull off that it has everything it has to have on it.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Now I had no clue about that.
And then how do they perform with that? Are you saying that's legit? What I mean is that okay? Or are you just saying, man, these guys aren't even
gonna shoot fine? I mean,
okay.
Now, would I go if I was an LE guy? Would I have a loose muzzle? No, of course not. But I'm saying like it's just what you were saying, like these old wives' tales or these
sacred cows,
these sacred cows that people just don't understand. Like tons of those guys for the CMP competitions. The majority of those bullseye guys, especially when you look at the 600-yard line with iron sights, rarely, tons of those guys do a 6 o'clock hold. Tons of them, because it's the only way they can see the damn target. Those are things that are like, it's just interesting. These are the things that like me and some of the other guys in the industry, we talk about all the time where, it's like, this is an example of like getting ahead of some of the gear companies, like because you got a guy's 25 years old and he's in charge of whoever saying, well, you can't do this. And I'm like, well, that's been done since rifles were a thing. That's what they've been doing, Guys slung in on an M4. How about this one? You guys have seen a shooting mitt, right? Underslung, bottom mount sling on the front. You're slung in with a cotton sling, tightening it down on your arm, right? How do you reload at the 300 when you got to do rapid fire? Well, think about it. I mean, you're not going to, if you're right-handed, you're not reloading with your right hand because you're not going to come unslung to reload, right?
Exactly. You're going to stay slung. Yep.
So you're going to reload with your left hand. Now, granted, it's for that competition. But do you know have you ever watched and said, well, and I'm telling you this just because I've done it. Do you know how I would send the bolt forward?
I don't know, honestly, thinking about it that way, other than reaching around the mag.
Now, some guys do that. Yep. Some guys absolutely do that. I would put the mag in and hit the back of the buttstock.
Good point. No, that's a good point because it will.
I learned that from a guy that in 2000, he was probably 67 or 68 years old, smoking, you know what I mean? But this guy would shoot, he would shoot lights out all the time. And he's like, hey, Navy. That's what he called me on the firing line. He's like, Navy, get over here. Here's how you reload that thing. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, I just saved 2 seconds right there on the reload.
It is interesting that because I've done that accidentally and never picked up on it. Hey, might as well just do it in those instances. That's a good point.
I don't know, just interesting things about those sacred cows, like you're saying.
Yeah, cool. Well, Kyle, I think that we're getting close to the hour and a half mark. Go ahead, Aaron.
Bro, I do not want to forget to ask about this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so we can clean this up pretty quick. But so Kyle, real quick, I just had to ask you about this. So I've got my little USPS tracking here. My Holosun EPS, which are rarer than hen's teeth these days. I call it getting my Turbo Man doll from the Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I have my Turbo Man doll in the mail. It's hung up at the post office right now because of the the bottleneck for Christmas. But I had to ask you. So how are you digging that EPS?
Oh man. Love it. And listen, so that's that's another podcast, right? Red dot size. I'm a 6 MOA guy. I love it.
Okay, interesting.
If it was up to me, I would not allow anyone to shoot a pistol red dot on. I just think 2 MOA is too small.
Huh.
I like a bigger dot. Interestingly enough, I have trained in 2022. God, I don't know the exact number. It was 3 or 4 different departments that happened to have red dots where they had the option to scroll, like Holosun's a very known one where you can pick, the dot, you can pick a ghost ring, or you can pick an EOTech type reticle. I'll tell you, man, this freaks a lot of people out. You will be surprised how much of a faster return you'll get when you make the dot bigger. And ghost ring is an option a lot of people don't give a lot of effort to. And I'll tell you this, a guy that I've never met, I don't know what he looks like. If he was standing in my garage right now, I wouldn't even know it was him. But I know for a fact that Tim Herron shoots a ghost ring in carry optics, and I do believe he is a grandmaster.
Oh, yeah, he is. And
wow.
Tim has become a good friend. As a matter of fact, Tim was one of my fellow coaches in the range master instructor development class a couple of years ago. And again, Tim showed up to that class, with his level of shooting. Tim's a great dude. And yeah,
well, here's how this worked out is I was doing a department training. They all had Holosun 507s. And I mean, again, people like me, and I'm not the only guy, but I mean, we can look at the group and I can say, okay, this is what's happening here because I can tell where their rounds are impacting. Do you know what I mean? Like it's either, and I'm like, okay, I said, here's what I want you guys to do right now. I want you to all go to the ghost ring. They're like, okay. So, we're all down there at the target. They all go to ghost ring. We go back. We run very similar drills to what we had just done. And I have them, they're writing everything down for data return. And I'm like, well, there you go. You guys, on average, you guys just gained 7 points.
Damn.
And they're like, and one guy goes, yeah, I went to a Tim Herron class and he shoots a ghost ring. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, okay.
I'm surprised that we had Tim on. I guess we didn't talk about dots. We had him on not too long ago.
I mean, maybe the guy was confused or whatever, but I'm almost positive it was his name.
Oh no, I'll text text him and I'll let you know, buddy.
Well,
it's very interesting though.
Here's some funny information. I know I was at an IDPA competition and I put a battery in backwards on my 507C. And every time I drew, I would have to turn that dot on.
I've seen that before.
And all I could use was the EOTech thing. But you know what? I think I shot the best match I ever shot. It's like, man, you're making me think about this. That's pretty interesting.
Well, here's the thing. It's like me and Hotnet were talking about with sniper stuff the other day. Like when people ask us about like bridging gaps on scope mounts and things like that, and people are like, well, you should never do that or whatever. And I'm like, well, how many guys have you actually trained and done that on purpose and then collected the data? The guys were like, well, we don't do it. And I'm like, well, then why are you talking about it? Because I've done it with 2,500 dudes. Well, not because it's the thing to do, because I had the opportunity to do it. And I think that's, if you're doing a 5-day pistol class with the military and you have that option, I think as a trainer, you're doing them a disservice not to run them through everything. Because you might find, what if you have 20 guys and 10 of them do better with a ghost ring and 10 of them do better with a 2 MOA dot? It's like, well, okay. I mean, you have that option. I mean, that's where we're looking at. Some of the companies are so progressive, they're a little bit ahead of the shoot.
Well, Kyle, I really want to drive home an important point that you're making. What you're doing in that instance is you said it, you're collecting data. So in a way, without, folks that are statisticians and all that, will likely say, hey, this is the way you got to do it. Well, I'm just going to say it flat out. You're collecting scientific data when you're doing that through group after group. So yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm really intrigued by this discussion. And I think the next time I shoot, go ahead, buddy.
You got to do what, everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's going to like things a little bit different,
see things differently.
Yeah. It's like, you got to collect that data. Hey, here's one of the things on my gear list. If you look on any class that you click on, open enrollment, Obviously, the Gov stuff we don't advertise, but if you click on there, one of the things on the gear list is a Sharpie marker.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? It's not. We're not drawing cartoons or anything. I mean, it's so guys, I make them write down these things we're talking about, and then at the end, I say, hey, take a picture with your phone. You're not going to have time to go through all that in 2 days with me. If you have questions, you can email me. But you have a data return that is off the charts as far as splits go, draw times, accuracy, etc. Whether it's carbine or pistol. So very important. Data is, I mean, testing is a thing, man. It's a thing, and there's a lot of these guys I've talked about in this podcast that they do the same exact thing.
Well, I have to laugh. You mentioned Pat McNamara earlier. I think I remember him saying one time, he said, right here, well, it's, oh goodness, I'm going to embarrass myself, this Skillcraft version. Here's a Sharpie. But he said, it's a Sharpie. Put it in your pocket. It's a Sharpie. about range gear. And so, yeah, that stuck out to me. That's funny.
Yeah. And we have to have some people carry a ruler because some people think they have a one minute gun, and some people's version of an inch is not exactly what an inch is.
My twin brother.
Oh yeah, arguing. We were teaching a class a few weeks ago, and I started arguing with Eric about his walk off of yards. Is that what you're talking about, bro?
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Does it shortchange it?
What's that?
I don't remember. I think we were both pretty close, but
yeah,
I was trying to give a scientific standard to our students. I'm really glad Eric didn't jack me in the mouth for that.
Dude, I've seen that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that when I've been on a range, go to the 25-yard line, and I look at it. I mean, again, I do this for a living, so it's like, you know, I'm like looking at my, you know, just real quick, I just bring the gun out, and I'm like, there's no way this is 25. And they're like, no, look right there, it's the 25-yard line. And then you'll look down, and what's happened is over time they've had to add dirt to the berm.
Yeah.
Push them. And these guys are like, I show up and they're like, yeah, we all shoot, you know, we're like 95 plus at 25. And I'm like, and then I go to my truck, I break out a laser rangefinder, and I'm like, we're at 19 yards, dude. Like,
and I want to be clear that in that instance, it was just an opportunity to jab at my brother a little bit. It absolutely should be extremely close, especially for standards and when you're testing. At that moment, however, is when we're running through some drills and getting them through some fundamentals. I personally believe that it was close enough, and I still believe that today. But most assuredly, when you're testing and you are you know, especially when you're trying to give folks an understanding at 25 or more, it needs to be accurate at that point. But I'm fairly close. My walk-off proves to be fairly close.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, Eric, I think we need to let Kyle go. Yeah. This is just too damn fun. Yeah. But there's one more question, at least one little thing we got to talk about. Why don't you kick that off, Eric?
Yeah, so first off, there's kind of you may or may not know this, but we, so you see my drums in the background here, so you know I'm a drummer. And Tim Alexander is the drummer of Primus, and he's also the drummer of Pussifer.
Yeah. So,
you know, we had him on our show. Incidentally, and how we got him on our show is that Todd Fox is the security manager of Tool, Pussifer, Dave Matthews. Well, I may be wrong on Dave Matthews. Madonna,
huge ass acts for sure.
I mean,
Coldplay, etc.
Yeah. And so we hooked up with him through Todd Fox, and so he came on our show, and this is a little side note. Aaron and I are trying to just change up things and talk about music, and we didn't know his political stance on guns and whatnot. But Tim turned it on us and made it about what we do. You know, the self-defense, the combatives, you know, all that. It was a really cool show. If you feel like it, you should check it out.
Dude, I will, because I drive all the time, so I need podcasts.
Yeah, I'll send you the direct link to it. You check it out because it's pretty cool. But anyway, that said, you sent us a cool post that you made of Maynard Keenan. I guess sent through a friend or whatnot. Signed a 50 cal because that dude's a shooter. He's also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu as well. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, interesting thing. Years ago, I mean, obviously, I take this off for the video people. I mean, I have no hair.
We've known that for a while, Kyle.
One day, and he's like, man, he's like, you look like Maynard James Keenan, and I'm like, huh, I didn't really think about it, you know. And I'd always been a Tool fan, and so I would occasionally snag a picture of Maynard and I would post it, and I would pretend like it was me, and like the joke ran for years. Like people were like, they didn't know, you know. And then Maynard ended up doing he did like I think it might have been in Recoil magazine or something like that. He did like a thing, and then the jokes started coming in. People were like, well, is that Kyle or is that Maynard, or and people were like playing it up on the internet, like, hey, we've actually never seen them both at the same time, kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And then the guy who wrote the article that was in Recoil on Maynard, and this is back, this is years ago, man, like before, when print media was still a thing, when magazines were still a thing. So the guy ended up coming and doing an article on me in one of my classes. And as he's doing it, he's like, I'm the guy who did the thing on Maynard, and I saw, the joking and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm a big Tool fan, blah, blah, yada, yada. And one day he sent this to me, and I got it right here. I put it up on Instagram the other day, but, for the video people. So, yeah, Maynard's signature on there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Maynard. And I was supposed to do a little shooting thing for Maynard, and it never worked out. We just, at the time he was touring. So,
well, and
maybe one day we'll see.
I'll say this on the air too. We're still trying to work out a training opportunity with Tim Alexander, because he's interested in getting some training. And incidentally, he's in Washington State. He was going to Phoenix, but Bill Blowers is one of the guys that I sent contact information for Tim. So yeah. we may have to shoot Tim a text and say, hey, brother, what's going on? Let's get something together again. Because he also promised me some drumming lessons for the help that we've been providing him, at home defense stuff and some of the other aspects of what we do. And so, yeah, I'm looking for my drum lessons.
Well, and Eric, before we need to really let Kyle go, but before I say that, Eric, Kyle, you just got to understand that Tim is Eric's favorite musician in the world. So this show, being able to make friends with people like Tim, I mean, it's just it's crazy. And then, man, being able to chat with guys like you, it's been a busy day today. It's Christmas time. I always take on too many gigs at Christmas time, and for some reason, everybody wants to take out the craziest music possible at Christmas time, and I've got to practice my butt off, so I actually get stressed out playing guitar. But so just having this little break. In other words, what I was trying to say is that I knew we'd be coming here and having a good interview, but once again, just knocked it out of the park, and just a freaking blast talking with you. I mean, holy crap.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And hey, listen, the music thing and the entertainers and the actors, there's a lot of guys, and it's good for your podcast audience to know. There's a ton of dudes in Hollywood that are big gun guys.
Yep.
We talked about a couple, and I mean, it's more common than what most people think. And you got to take some of this with, obviously a lot of these guys know where they make their living from, so they got to be careful about the flag that they fly. But there's a lot of guys out there that are big 2A guys. They're into the gun industry. They're into training, whether it's fighting or shooting or both. So I would tell people, man, take a look around. Probably look at some of the people we follow. Right, you can go on my Instagram and like, hey, who does he follow? And you can kind of get a good aspect. I mean, Ethan Suplee is a great one to talk about. He's an actor that, big gun guy. He's been in a few classes of mine. And then, if you guys if Corrosion or Down is ever near where you guys are, let me know. Cause Pepper's a friend, and Pep's like, Pep will come out. I mean, he might show up at the t-shirt booth. You know what I mean? Like, so just let me know, man. That's an easy hookup.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Well, Kyle, again, always a pleasure. You bring it big time, and man, it was a pleasure. You have a blessed Christmas, brother, and we'll let you know when this drops. All right.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, and thank the audience for listening, man. I hope it turns out well, and man, it was a good time, man. It's very humbling that you guys have had me back a third time. That's
you don't even know, brother. we pinch ourselves, man, getting to hang out with the folks we do. So thank you very much. Well, with that said, brother, to yous and yours, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Same to you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.